Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Cory, and Dom, not Dominic Hasek, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. You thought the trade news was slowing down? I don't know why you would think that after everything we told you last week. Think again! The Avalanche, once again, had one game where defense was optional and another where they were absolutely dialed. But help is on the way. But that isn't the biggest Avs news of the week. The Sharks continue to fight hard for those coveted playoff spots in the West. Unfortunately, there are only 8. But MacLeod Celebrini is on a mission to get them there. All this and more on this week's episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. And hey, if you're a regular listener, you like what we're doing here, please tell somebody else who needs to know about this show, because we want to grow this show to grow the game of hockey. Also, leave us a like, hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. We definitely really appreciate it. It genuinely means more than you know. It's something that every social media YouTuber, whatever, says, but it genuinely does make a difference. So if you can do it, if you can rate us, if you can do whatever, just to spread it around, we would definitely really appreciate it. Anyways, because Dom and I only have 2 games each to discuss this week, and no, we're not going to talk about Ottawa 1 because we're recording this right after that game finished. It's still too fresh in my mind, and I'm still too mad right now. We figured we would rather prioritize this time with discussing other things. Other things such as additional trade news, signings, and, most fun, guessing who makes the playoffs. Because obviously Dom and I have never been wrong on this front before. Of course, we will virtually always discuss the hockey games, but let's make it fun today. Instead of having an Avs-only section or an In the Tank, I figure let's just ping-pong games back and forth this week in a rapid-fire analysis and then move on to bigger and brighter things as we close in on the Olympics. Also, everything kind of times out perfectly because the roster freeze is next Wednesday on the 4th, and that is also the Avalanche's final game before we go into the Olympic break. What is it for you guys, Dom? I guess the 4th would be your last game too, because we play each other that day. What am I talking about?
I was say, yeah, the 4th is gonna be exactly. The 4th will be our joint last game before the break. It'll be the last game on a 5-game road trip here for the Sharks. One game has already been finished with a victory that I'm excited to talk about tonight. But what better way to finish before the break than go into a game together? Although for everyone, you know now to expect your episode a day later than usual because I don't think we'll be recording the same night with being at the game. So you have been warned. Tune in a day later next week.
Good point, Dom. Well, also, if you want to come say what's up, I do know where we are. I believe we are in section 228, row 4, seats probably 5 and 6. So if you want to come and say what's up, please come and say what's up. We would love to say hello if you're also going to be at this game. Now, let's jump right into these games here.
Philadelphia. Oh, no.
First, shout out to Coach Frank, who is an Avs fan and a proud Coloradan, but was also born and raised in Philly and had his family get together with 17 people. How you coordinate that many people to go to a hockey game, I don't know. And if you don't know who Coach Frank is, well, he featured on an episode earlier with his wise insights, so go back and find it, because I certainly don't remember which episode that was, but his wise insights have been here before, and we love Coach Frank. Now, in his family get-together, a mixture of Avs and Philly fans at that Philly game. Some of them certainly had a great time, as did the numerous other Philadelphia transplants in attendance. Also, Owen Tippett had an excellent time, as the Avalanche allowed another opposing hat trick on their home ice. Oh, and then 4 more goals apart from that. Full disclosure, I only have the numbers for this one. And to be honest, that can paint some very different narratives without the eye test. I say that because I have gotten very mixed fan testimony from how people perceive this game. Even with highlights, that doesn't give me the full story, but there is still a discussion to be ultimately had here, regardless of how you slice it, the Avalanche still lost 7-3. Philadelphia. That isn't a knock on Philadelphia, but they have begun to come back to earth a bit. They have the structures in place to play well and win games, but they are missing Vladar, no longer. He actually came back tonight, who has been stellar in goal for them, or they had been missing Vladar, let's just say that, who had been stellar in goal for them, and some fans have said they disagree with Coach Rick Tocchet's deployment of certain players, and before coming to Colorado, Philadelphia had lost 7 of their last 8, and their scoring wasn't stellar either, minus their close loss with Utah. They only managed up to 2 goals in 4 of their contests, and in the 2 that they scored 3 in, they still lost by a margin of 3. They had not been playing the most stellar hockey up to that point when coming into one of the best home barns in the NHL, and yet they played by far their best against the Avs. The Avalanche expect every opponent to bring their best, but this game was cut and dry, plain and simple, not up to the standards of hockey the Avalanche have set for themselves and demonstrated very clearly throughout a large majority of this season. Some people want to blame this game on Blackwood, some want to blame it solely on the defense and poor management in the Avs zone, but even if we don't see the game, the answer very usually lies somewhere in the mushy middle, in the gray area. First, defensively, the Avalanche obviously were not the fewest goals per game allowed version of the Avalanche. I gotta pause here for a second. Dom, it's so funny watching you follow along with me and see like where Google is identifying grammar mistakes, but I can't change it because it doesn't make sense in word flow. So I see you go and like investigate it, and then you're like, oh, I see why it's this way, and then you'll back your cursor off.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is funny. Also, I forgot my new laptop is a touchscreen, so one of them I moved by accident. So I'm glad I didn't mess up any of your words.
Oh my gosh!
But it helps to follow along, and it is funny with the typos because I know sometimes you'll catch them as you go when Google actually gets it right. But
I know.
Anyway, a fun little laugh about for us that you all are now on the inside joke with us.
And, you know, I have a very unique way of speaking. Is it always the most grammatically correct? And is it usually very tangential? Yes, it absolutely is. But I do try and be correct most of the time. I've had a lot of teachers reprimand me many times for that. So I do my best. But, you know, sometimes Google, it just doesn't get me. Even though I know what I'm trying to say is still technically correct in my head. It's the way I want to say it. Anyway. When you allow a power play goal...
Listen, this isn't a grammar podcast. This isn't a grammar podcast. Like, I say the word incredible 17 times an episode or something, so it's okay. We're learning as we go here, and you know what? We speak the way we speak, so if you don't like it, come join us and talk your own way. You know what? That's what you can do.
Well, anyway, when you allow a power play goal, when you have the league's best penalty kill, and a winning short-handed goal tied with the miserable New York Rangers, and then 4 more at 5-on-5. To give a team that many chances is on everyone on the ice. The more unbelievable thing is, just like the Predators game, the offensive numbers indicated that the Avalanche were doing better. The Avalanche had double the amount of penalty opportunities, outshot the Flyers 35-20, and they only had 11 giveaways to the Flyers 23. But the Avalanche's giveaways, no matter how few, were more costly and given away in a much more dangerous area of the ice that led to goals. As for goaltending, Mackenzie Blackwood, up to that point, clearly had been struggling getting back into form, coming back from injury. There were obviously instances where you needed a save and you didn't get one. Mind you, the Flyers did have quality chances, but the expected goals for the Flyers was only 3.006. So they did earn 3 of those goals with their quality of shots, but not the other 3 scored on Blackwood. I won't be overly harsh on him due to his performance in the upcoming game we're about to discuss against Toronto. And no one is perfect every single game, and everyone gives up a stinker occasionally, but you can't give up 3. Thankfully, things are on the mend. And even in tonight's loss against Ottawa, Blackwood was the best player out there, bar none. But everyone needed to be better here. No one was without fault. Final thoughts here. This isn't a revolutionary take. This team is not the same without Gabriel Landeskog. It's very clear without his presence on the ice that winning does not come as easily to this team. They can still win and still win well, but then they'll have games like this where they lack the pushback from the bench and in the locker room. When people talk about hockey intangibles that players bring, this is it. This team is truly not the same without Gabe. It's insane to me as I watched the first 15 minutes of this game, and I felt the Avalanche were playing very well. Suddenly, I catch the scoring update after I had to turn it off and saw that we had given up 2 goals at the end of the first, which bewildered me with what I had seen up to that point. The worst part is the Avalanche pushed back well and tied the game twice. But there was no third period Avs. I don't know how many times they've been held scoreless in the third. I can't imagine it's many. And then allowing 4 in the third, even if 2 of them are empty netters. I don't think they've done that at any point this season. Lastly, I love Connor McGahey. If you don't know who that is, he is the Avalanche radio announcer. I don't know why you wouldn't know who that is, but you should. I love that he is an Avs homer. I love his endless energy, his fun player nicknames, and absolutely electric calls. I understand he goes through the same emotions and frustrations as we do as fans, because he is also a fan of the game, but his comments during this game and its broadcast were short-sighted and silly and at the conclusion of the game. For those who didn't hear, you can most certainly find them easily, but in so many words, he said in response to Philly fans starting a Let's Go Flyers chant and ball, which I hate as well if any fan base does it, but man, that Philly fans need to leave their fandom in Philly, Philly is trash, and that Avs fans can only be Avs fans if they live in Denver. Obviously, he didn't mean it this way and didn't mean to be exclusionary of all of the Avs fans around the U.S. and the world, but that's how it came off. He hasn't called a game since up until tonight. I didn't catch the beginning of the broadcast, so I am and will be curious if he retracted or apologized for any of those. And my opinion, there are, shall we say, worse things he could have said and have been said by other radio personalities on air, but that doesn't excuse this lack of thinking before speaking. But hockey is a game of emotion, and it gets the best of us all sometimes. Never change, Philly fans.
Certainly never change. Our team's losing at home.
That's
in our
crazy.
Own building.
Right as you start your thought process, you just get cut off. That's insane. Try again.
We're starting early tonight, I guess.
I know.
Anyways, that is the worst as a fan when you are at home and the opposing team is able to chant louder because your own fan base has started to leave and their fans have reason to celebrate, know they've got a win incoming. It sucks. It sucks as a fan. We've all been there. Every person are on TV when the opposing team is chanting in their building because their team's just losing badly. It happens. And like you said, Cory, emotion gets the best of all of us sometimes, and announcers are no different. But I do think with the number of good calls and like the compliments you mentioned from McGahey, I do hope that if it takes a retraction that he's willing to do that so that his time with the Avalanche announcing may continue. I agree that there are certainly worse things that could have been said and have been said in the past. And I understand we live in a different world than we used to as well. So that plays a part of it too. I don't think this should mark the end of a man's career with this franchise.
No,
either,
not at all.
You know, I do think this is something that should, if it takes an apology, fine. Please go ahead and do that and give that olive branch, and everyone will forget by the time we reach next year. And if they don't forget, that's more of a sign of a problem they have in holding on to hate much longer than it's productive. Because let's be real, it's never productive to just hold on to blind hate. But
unless you're me, I have a lot of blind hate for different teams.
Well, I can't speak any higher of myself considering Vegas.
Anyway,
and,
wait, can you hold on to your...
That's enough right there.
Can you hold on to your other thoughts here for just a second? Because I just wanted to bounce off of what you said real quickly so we can move off of it. I agree, and I mean, by no means do I think it's, endangering his career by any sense of the imagination. I do think an apology is owed, and, I might be in the minority because some people don't feel this way. I feel like if your sport includes home announcers, obviously, football is not that way, but if your sport includes home announcers, home analysts, home radio broadcasters, I think they should be homers. They should be fans of the team that they are hired to talk about, to call, whatever. I think that, and that's why I like the Avalanche team. A lot of people around the league don't because they are giga homers, but I like them for that reason. I like a lot of other analysts and announcers and play callers for hockey because they are homers. But that being said, there is still a certain tact that you have to maintain when you are on the air. Me and you don't necessarily have that same pressure. Obviously, we still always want to be tactful because we want to welcome people into the game, not be exclusionary. So if you're an Avs fan from around the world, tell us where you're at. If you're not in Colorado, we'd love to hear where you're sitting. But there is a certain amount of tact that you have to maintain, especially when you are somebody who is constantly in the public eye. This was definitely a slip up, a misfire of that. But obviously, I think that's the risk that you always carry. And yeah, anyway, we can move forward to more hockey-related things now.
Well said, Cory, and Pobody's nerfed. Maybe that's the best way to finish that. But
you got me there. I was like,
yes,
what?
That's one of my favorites. But anyway, to the actual hockey here, because you had a few different good things here. So I'm just going to rewind back to the start and kind of work my way through it, because the fall of Philadelphia recently has been shocking.
Lost again tonight, too.
I know I have. I saw. And man, this team, they really showed a lot of fight and were climbing up the standings early in the season, had games in hand, really just electric to watch. But when Vladar went down, that was like a tipping point, a massive shift for the team. They haven't been the same since. I mean, you said it in the actual numbers. If we count the loss tonight, that makes it 8 of 9 in their 8 losses in their last 9 games. And I'm not going to dive into the Rick Tocchet thing. Yes, if you go online, you could find, and his coaching now is rather consistent with his historical coaching as well, with similar players. So without diving too deep into that, I can't say I'm necessarily surprised that Rick Tocchet has done coaching the way he has, nor that the fan base is upset about it, because if I was a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers, I'd probably be mad too. But either way, I think it's honestly disappointing, because disappointing for the Avalanche to lose in just such egregious fashion to Philadelphia, right? When you feel like at moments you're playing the better game, but you just make the most costly mistakes at the most inopportune of times. So that sucks as a fan, when you're like, oh, we could have and should have won this game, but we lost it. It's not that they beat us. We lost it by making these crucial errors. And then for Philadelphia, it might be a little light at the end of the tunnel, a brief little commercial break of happiness. But man, the suffering they've been going through in the recent couple of weeks, I mean, we could honestly say the whole month of January has just been a stark shift in their reality compared to where they were in November and December, climbing up the standings, where they were legitimately a possible playoff team. And it just seems to be falling away from them really quickly.
Well, unfortunately, that is their problem and not mine. I obviously always give Philadelphia kind of that casual whoop whoop just because of, connections of Philadelphia fans in my life. But at the end of the day, that's on them. And that's on them to create a better product on the ice. Unfortunately, they're in the hyper-competitive Eastern Conference right now. And despite being in the Metro Division, right? I'm not stupid. Philly's in the Metro Division, correct?
Yeah. You're not stupid. Sorry.
That would have been scary if I just straight up oh yeah, I know hockey. I know all this stuff, and just absolutely muffined on that one. But yeah, but Dom, anything else you wanted to touch on here?
Definitely. And I think why I just really quickly to wrap up the Philly part and why I was attached to them is because I was rooting for them in the power rankings. Like seeing them be good at the same time as the Sharks and things. I was just liking watching the league get flipped on its head.
Mhm.
I liked seeing how well the Metro was doing 2 months ago, and that just simply isn't the case anymore. The Atlantic has re-cemented itself in the East as the better of the two divisions. But more importantly, talking Avalanche, and you're right. It's not revolutionary. Every Avs analyst, every real analyst around the league should be able to come to the conclusion that the heartbeat of this team is Gabe Landeskog. As the captain, we've talked about how this team, even with the success in the last couple of years, was just instantly better in the regular season this year, having Gabe Landeskog back. And his presence in the room, his presence on the ice. Leaders don't always have to be talking. Leaders don't always have to be performing the best on the ice. Their presence is all it takes sometimes to just make everybody step up and play better. Like a general, you don't want to be the guy who lets down the squad in front of your commander, right? If word of mouth, if the commander's not there, it's a little bit easier to not have that pressure that you put on yourself. But regardless of what Gabe does on the ice, he has developed and earned a degree of respect that could have that effect on his teammates, where they are inspired or just have that natural internal pressure to perform when he's out there on the ice with them. And I think it's important to note that at the same time, still not having Devon Toews with his injury as well. I know he's day-to-day right now, according to Puckpedia.
He is on the road trip with them, I'd like to say. So there is a possibility that we see him play on this road trip.
And that's great news. That really is great news. But the fact that both of these players have been gone overlapping at the same period of time, it's not exactly surprising that we've seen the Avs losses in regulation triple.
Oh, yeah.
In this period of time, and that's crazy to say that their losses have tripled, but it's because their losses are still so low that they have a 10-point lead or a 9-point lead on the next closest team in the league. It's 9 points now. I double checked.
It is,
but
yes.
Either way, I do hope that this next week in upcoming games can serve as a bounce back for the Avalanche. Here's fingers crossed that Landeskog will be ready in time for the Olympics. I know Sweden has already had so many top tier players be lost to injury at this point for who would have been on their Olympic roster. So they really need Landy at this point. And last I heard, it was about a 50-50 if he would be ready in time.
He really wants to be there. Like he desperately wants to play. So until he says otherwise, expect him there. He'll make the best choice for himself and for the team, but expect the man to be there. It'll take a lot to not have him play. He really wants it. Real quickly before we move on, I was just remembering, I was listening through, catching up on some of our old episodes today, and it was really funny because you had mentioned how the Sharks were leading in shorthanded goals at one point, and how you said, at least you guys aren't like that. Well, whoops.
Yeah, and now I can say at least we aren't leading that anymore. But I'm sorry that the Avalanche had to take the lead in that. Sorry to all of our fan bases, right? Can't someone in the East take that award? Or maybe, can't Dallas be the team who leads in shorthanded goals allowed? I feel like that would be happy for everyone.
We could only dream. But anyway, Tom, I think you have some Sharks games to talk about. We'll speed it along here so we have some more time. That was kind of my biggest rant, and it ended up going on a little longer than I had intended, but we want to have time to make fun of ourselves, so we'll keep it rolling. What, who do the Sharks play this week? I forgot.
Well, the Sharks, like the Avalanche, as you mentioned earlier, only played twice in the past week. The first of those games was all the way back on Friday, the 23rd, at home against the Rangers. So,
How funny.
for those who don't remember from our prior episodes or who are new to hockey and just don't know, this year the New York Rangers are god awful at home, but they can be a really dangerous road team despite their struggles. They look a lot better on the road. So you can imagine that I was a little on edge, a little nervous as I was rushing home after work, a little late to get to the start of this one. And man, or was I coming from somewhere else? I'm trying to remember where I was on Friday. Either way, I missed
From
like the
your
first 10
mom's
minutes of this
house.
game, and without
Your life, bing bong.
and basically I just rewound it to the start and then caught up during intermission to be back in live time. And it's a good thing I did, because folks, the Sharks scored 3 straight goals to start this game, quelling any concern of the Rangers doing their road shenanigans. They took the early lead and never looked back. There were 2 power play goals for the Sharks in the first 3 minutes and 8 seconds of the first period. Yes, I said that correctly. Before the Rangers had a single shot on goal in this game, they had conceded not 1, but 2 goals on consecutive power plays. It was the first time I have seen a coach have to call their timeout in the first 5 minutes of a game just to settle their team down. And this is a more experienced Rangers team, especially compared to the roster the Sharks are putting out on any given night. So I really glad I went back and just watched this game from the start. Was worth the watch. Honestly, if you're going to watch this game, just watch the first period. That's all you need to watch, and that sums up this game. First, though, let's talk about the goals, because it was MacLeod Celebrini breaking the ice just a minute 9 into the game after Mika Zibanejad for the Rangers was called on a tripping penalty when he tripped Tyler Toffoli just merely 29 seconds into the game. Just boom, sends Toffoli to the ice and goes to the box. And then 14 seconds after MacLeod's goal, so puck drop, 14 seconds more of play, and the Rangers just decided to fuck it up again. This time it was Matthew Robinson sending the puck straight over the glass and out of play, which was a delay of game. Now, the Sharks did not score as quickly on this power play, but honestly, it was a more impressive goal, dare I say. I mean, anytime MacLeod scores, it's impressive, but Pavel Regenda taking
Does he have
his
an agenda?
backhand top cheddar to... forgive me, everyone. Pavel Regenda has got an agenda.
Is he
and
doing
he's done
it again?
Agenda. He's doing it agenda. This time, I don't know how to say backhand cheddar. But yeah, I don't know how he scored this goal, honestly. To have the amount of control, is still be able to lift the puck up over the goaltender's shoulder to put it in top shelf, have enough force, because it's not like point blank. He's in the slot, but I don't know, Corey, did you see this goal? Maybe you can better explain to me how he managed to elevate that puck on his backhand while still having enough control to get it under the bar.
Yes, I definitely know these things as an experienced hockey player. What the fuck? No. The only goal that I saw was the identical Macklin to, or Will Smith to Macklin feed. Like that one that they keep doing. That just works every time. I saw that.
Well, then let's jump ahead to that one. Maybe one of these days, Coach Frank can explain the backhand to us. We'll have to ask him next time. Next time we get to interview him for any questions. But let's jump ahead to that Macklin and Will Smith combo goal again, because at roughly 7:30 into the first, Colin Graff stole the puck on the forecheck, which again, Colin Graff, he doesn't always get a ton of credit, but man, is he really, really good with his fundamentals. Stealing the puck on the forecheck, back checking, penalty killer. He's probably the Sharks' best penalty killer. So he's playing those hard minutes, and I do like seeing when he gets rewarded with playing on the top line. That really I have a soft spot for Colin Graff if you haven't caught on by now. So I really like seeing him get more minutes to show off his game and have a better chance at getting some points. And, he set up this whole play, chipped it off the boards to Will Smith. And as you were saying, Cory, this combo play that Will and Macklin just have like a telepathic connection where they always know where each other are on the ice. And I love it because Will Smith gets the puck with his back to the middle of the ice and throws a behind the back pass without looking across the middle to Macklin Celebrini, who could fire home the one-timer. One might say, Cory, was it a piss missile?
I would accurately say that it was indeed a piss missile.
But it was also not just a piss missile, but a great movement without the puck from Graff to set up the play with the forecheck, right? But especially from Macklin, who on that forecheck with Graff circles and finds some open space for himself while they were both waiting for the support of Will Smith. He was just putting his NHL IQ in timing on display to circle away, get some space from his defender so he could just saunter right up to it and take that shot on his first touch of the puck. Chef's kiss. I don't know if you could hear that on the mic, but it was indeed
disturbingly did.
I don't know if it's good or bad now, but I'm just going to keep going so I don't have to worry about it. The Sharks did concede a lone goal in the period to Sam Carrick to finish the first period up 3-1. But that would remain the score for the rest of the game.
One more time.
The wah.
Yeah.
I have practiced from making fun of the Ducks all those years. That was my mock the Anaheim Ducks sound. But that score of 3-1 after one period was the final score of the game as well. So I won't bore you with the minor details and summarize what the real message here is. And I honestly don't know which is more accurate. If the Sharks were caught relaxing too much, letting the Rangers hang around in this game, or if it was more so that they had that boost in confidence and maybe got a little aggressive, tried to do fancier things, as Brody Brazil put it after the game. He was talking about whether or not you get pucks behind the defense with Drew Remenda instead of trying to play in front of the defense. And so I think it's a bit of both in this game. I think there were moments where they caught on their heels and other moments where they maybe tried stuff that was a little unnecessarily difficult, maybe is the best way to put it, instead of just doing chip and chase and letting their forecheck go to work. So a little bit of both. But the point is after this flurry of goals, 3 goals in 7:37, the first 7 minutes and 37 seconds of the game, they didn't score again, and they had a couple of chances. They had some really dangerous chances that just missed, but overall, they let the Rangers continue to fight and stay in this game. And Cory, I know I sent you a message at first where I was like, I feel bad for the Rangers right now, but by the end of the first period, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That could be a bad omen, because where did our scoring go? So I think this was a lesson for the Sharks as well. And they did learn from this lesson, I think, in the next game I'll get to talk about. But after those 2 quick power play goals to start the game, the Sharks were 0 for 5 on the remaining power play chances to finish 2 for 7 on the power play. They still outshot the Rangers. They still had their chances, like I said, but they had to rely on another stellar performance from Ned for his 5th straight win, making 28 saves on 29 shots faced. Nedeljkovic has just been on a roll and maybe is a legitimate claim to the starter role. So this was a team win in that they needed both. They needed Nedeljkovic to play as well as he did to keep the Rangers from actually getting back in this game. But the offense was responsible for getting the win and getting that advantage early so they could play with a lead. And it's really, really, as a Sharks fan, really exciting to see the tank just absolutely again like the old days. Because when the Sharks get a lead in the first period, it makes it so difficult for an opponent to get back in that game. That building is so loud. It is so much fun. The fans, those are some of the best fans in the NHL right there. So, and I know I don't want to talk about it too much. I know there's plenty of Avalanche fans listening, and you guys are wonderful fans too. I mean, no disrespect. I just am trying to celebrate seeing the Sharks be back. And you can tell the city of San Jose knows they are back. They are feeling it. They are invested. And that energy is spilling over from the fans onto the ice when the Sharks can start off these games really quick.
Zero offense taken. And if you're an Avs fan and you took offense to that, I'm disappointed in you. We always want more hockey fans. But yes, it's good when the tank is not tanking, as we shall say. But I mean, these wins are super important right now. And without, diving too deep into it, you need every single one. Nobody at the bottom of the West, minus maybe Calgary and Vancouver, are slowing down. Everybody's still, maybe Winnipeg, everybody's still trying to fight for those playoff spots. But I mean, somebody's going to have to sell. Somebody's going to have to buy. So I fully believe that the Sharks can be one of the last teams standing at the end of it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. This road trip provides interesting opportunities. They've got the games upcoming as well against the Avalanche and Oilers, which are going to be harder matchups, but some winnable games in there too, with Calgary and Chicago on the schedule as well. So those type of games, there has to be an expectation to win now. That is what the team needs to expect of themselves if they weren't already. That is what the fans need to be expecting of this team, since they are in a playoff spot. It is not crazy to expect the Sharks to win games anymore. It is a rational, logical conclusion. And this one against the Rangers, I think, was particularly interesting, just as a final thought, because like I said before, the Rangers are much better on the road. And coming into this game, I think the Rangers were either tied or slightly ahead of the Sharks on points at that point in the season. So they were evenly matched teams. So this was not a guaranteed win for sure. So even if it wasn't the prettiest full 60 minutes from the Sharks, they got the win. They got an early lead and they were able to defend a lead. And that is the positive highlight we take from this. The goaltending, the defense, it showed up and showed out. And that is progress for this Sharks team that does have playoff aspirations.
Exactly. Well, everybody, we'll keep it chugging along here with, and this is a much shorter segment, I promise, Toronto. Oh, God, I wrote that wrong. Oh, God, it's all messed up now. Toronto. Damn it. Well, you guys don't have to see the pain that I just did. Now, this was a fun one, at least for Avalanche fans. Not for Leafs fans. In fact, I watched Steve Dangle's LFR following this game, which stands for Leaf Fan Reaction. Very on brand here. And instead of his usual yelling about the loss to the Avalanche, it made him get immensely philosophical as he walked through a snowy wood and spoke on the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they needed to do going forward. It was very calm and serene. But I certainly understand where he's coming from, and it is curious the absolute ebbs and flows of the Maple Leaf season that has landed us to where we are right now. But I'm not going to summarize what he said, and that's his video. Go and check it out. Anyways, you beat us in our house, we'll beat you in yours. It was a close game in Ball Arena. Not so much here. Quite simply put, the Avalanche had control nearly the entire game. Going into the third, Toronto did well to push back, and in fact, that in the third period, Toronto closed the shot gap, but going into the third, the Avalanche were out shooting Toronto 31-19. However, the Avalanche just settled into a comfortable defensive posture, being up by 3 already. I will give the Leafs, who pulled Joseph Woll with over 5 minutes remaining and managed to keep the Avalanche from getting an empty netter for a while, but unfortunately they couldn't forever, some credit. But just like how the Avalanche bounced back against Washington after their poor performance against Nashville, this felt like a scheduled loss for Toronto. The Avs don't lose 2 games in a row often, and they hold each other and themselves accountable. The Avalanche do well to assess and know where they performed poorly and what they did wrong in a previous game, and we all know what those things were. They corrected all of it in this game against the Leafs, where their defensive posture looked excellent. No puck remained in their D zone for any extended period, and that allowed them to hammer the Leafs over and over again. Then in the third, when the Leafs managed to generate some pushback and momentum, it didn't matter. The The Avalanche were positionally sound, and you could feel the Leafs players getting frustrated as they just couldn't break through. That was aided by an exceptionally great bounce-back performance by Mackenzie Blackwood, who deserved the shutout, which was stolen. But some of the saves were all world highlight reel. The Leafs did still manage a few good chances. Teams always do, but Mackenzie Blackwood seemed to be settling back into form. Took a few ass games and poor performances, but he looks like he owns his crease once again. But the absolute best part of this game was easily the Brock Nelson hat trick. That's right. Big Cock Brock got his 5th career hat trick a near decade after his first one. He has had multiple 2-goal games this year. Honestly, in games that Brock Nelson scores a goal, he seldom doesn't score another. He is always a great lock to score, but he hasn't been able to get that elusive 3rd goal all seasons with some great opportunities. However, tonight, he would not be denied. He got 2 absolutely crispy goals to open the scoring in the first. One off of a great steal from Cale Makar, where Brock quickly turned up ice and is, in my opinion, the best Av at picking his spot and firing it exactly where he wants, which is what he did. Leafs prevented a pass, but not the sniper shot. Then, no less than a minute and a half later, Arturi Lehkonen feeds him from behind the net, and Brock scores from basically along the goal line. Crispy. Finally, he gets the empty netter to seal it. Some hats did rain in Toronto. The Avs' goals were timely, especially the one by Jack Drury near the conclusion of the second period. He had all the time and space in the world to pick where he wanted to shoot. That was what was great about the Avs' offense tonight. Guys were trying to shoot. Instead of forcing a pass where there wasn't one, they took the shot and got rewarded. My only gripe with this game was that Zakhar Bardakov, who I would have healthy scratched in today's game, he once again took a late game penalty in the final few minutes. In this case, in the final 2 minutes, this single-handedly crushed Mackenzie Blackwood's shutout and gave Toronto a little pride back. But that was just ball crushing and deflating.
It's always frustrating when those shutouts get ruined late in the game, especially by someone who's not a regular starter. Like, I think that's fair to say, right? Of Bardakov, I don't think he's someone you expect to be playing every game as a full-time NHLer. So those type of mistakes are bound to happen with someone of that experience level, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing for a goaltender on the verge of a shutout, especially as a fan. I think the fans care more about it than the goaltender actually does when it comes to the actual shutout, but we
You're
still
damn
want
right
that for Mackenzie nonetheless. I'm glad you could get your revenge against the Leafs, though. Only thing I have to rebuttal a little bit is, yes, in general, the Avalanche are not a team that loses 2 games in a row. However, 6 of their losses in January have come either right before or right after another loss. That's 3 different instances of back-to-back losses this month alone.
Yes.
So
let me tell you.
I think the regular, fully healthy Avalanche do not do that.
I am fucking sick of this ping pong bullshit we've been doing, including tonight, where it's like shit game, great game, shit game, great game. And now we're back to shit game. It'd be great if going into the break here, just the last 3 games, we could, sorry that you're one of them, string together 3. It doesn't even have to be great, just good games that we go out, we play well, we win the fucking game. Because, oh God, I can't say anything else without getting into Ottawa, but trust me, I know this January has been so fucking painful to get through, I guess by an Avalanche standard. They are no longer the picture of perfect consistency, but I guess that's why they banked all of their losses, I guess, for right fucking now. I wanted some records this season, but I guess not. And then everybody's all like, oh, I'm so glad the Avs are going through adversity, as if this team hasn't gone through it already. They act like this is a fucking group of rookies, like, and this isn't meant to be offensive, like this is the fucking Sharks. You know what I mean? Not that the Sharks haven't gone through adversity, more just like the young and the inexperienced part of it. This team has gone through plenty of fucking adversity. Look at last year against Dallas as the perfect example. You're sent home by your former teammate, your friend. That's not adversity with basically this group of guys. You only have a few new faces here that, while important, I'm sure everybody here has gone through fucking adversity. Just because this team is winning doesn't mean they haven't gone through adversity. It's so fucking stupid that it's like, oh, well, I'm glad the Avalanche are losing so they can go through adversity. Kiss my ass.
Yeah, each of these players had to go through unimaginable adversity with how competitive it is and difficult to make it into the league in the first place. So, sitting on your couch saying something, you have no idea the adversity a single one of these players, even the guys in the AHL who are call-ups, have gone through just to make it that far. And while you sit on your couch, know that you couldn't, because if you could, you probably would. But I think also this year, injuries have been up all around the league. Every team has had to deal with it in ebbs and flows. I know the Sharks are finally getting healthy, and it just so happens to be right now while the Avalanche aren't. And the Avalanche's losses when they've come here are finally significant ones, but they've been battling injuries all season like everybody else, and they've just been overcoming them and getting wins more than everyone else. It's not that they haven't had adversity. It's that they've had adversity and been overcoming that. God decided, let me throw a new challenge your way and double down on that adversity and give you Landeskog and Taves out at the same time. I'm going to not take 1-star crucial player, but 2. See how you bounce back from that. I'm going to level the playing field that way. That's what I think it is, honestly. It's just because the Avalanche are that good. It's like anything else in this universe. If there is evil, good will rise up against it, or vice versa, right? So the fact that the Avalanche have been conquering adversity all season, eventually either they were just going to win every single game and never stop, or the adversity was going to build back up and overcome them. But I also think that this is going to help in the long run be beneficial for the Avalanche. Losing a couple of these games, there will be less pressure on them. They'll also be less expectations. The media will have doubts. They will say things that the Avalanche players can cling to and fuel themselves on. Being underestimated is a great weapon to be given before the playoffs. So any losses the Avalanche take up until then are just fuel to that fire.
Yeah. And I'll have a nice, sexy speech prepared before we go into the playoffs that has some very similar ideas to what you just presented. But anyways, Dom, you have another game that the Sharks played. Who did they play, and how did they do?
Well, the Sharks followed up this win at home versus the Rangers with a few nights off. So flash forward, or I guess backward as well, to Tuesday the 27th at Vancouver, which can I just say it is nice playing Vancouver as many times a season as we get to, because that is a nice little punching bag for the Sharks this year. Really, anytime MacLeod's on the squad. MacLeod Celebrini goes home to Vancouver and always puts on a show for his family and friends who are still there. It is unbelievable. I took a picture of what the Sharks broadcast had to say about it, and in total, in 3 games this season against the Vancouver Canucks, he has 2 goals and 6 assists in those 3 games.
That's a few.
But 6 of those 8 points have come in the games on the road at Vancouver, which is even more nuts in my opinion. Did I lose you? I thought I heard you there for a second.
No,
sorry.
I was just letting you roll. No, that was crazy.
Okay,
no.
So
no, we're good.
Anyway, I heard like a weird sound in my headphones, and I was like, "Wait, did I lose him?"
Are the ghosts talking to you, Dom? Are Quinn Hughes ghosts invading your mind right now? What is happening?
No, but you know who the ghosts are going to come for?
Who?
Sam Darnold. You're going to lose to the Patriots, my friend, in the Super Bowl.
No!
Evil.
Boo! Boo! Everybody boo the Patriots! Boo!
Sorry, Denver
Dom.
fans. Had to do it to you. I had to do it.
Nice, bro.
Anyway,
you beat the
back to
backup
hockey.
quarterback and everybody else who was ass. Great work. Good job, Drake May. You got 1 fucking extra field goal.
Honestly, the Blizzard won us that game. That's the real MVP. I know that as a fan. Doesn't change the fact that I'm very thrilled with the outcome. Anyway, I won't make you guys hate me more by continuing to talk about it.
Everybody
Let's
just
talk
turned the
hockey.
pod off.
Final score in this. Damn. Alrighty. Well, I'll talk to myself then and to you, Cory, because if you didn't already know, the Sharks won this game over the Canucks 5-2. This one started different, but also the same to the game against the Rangers. So different because the game basically started 4-on-4 with matching roughing penalties assessed to Orlov and Connor Garland. Just 44 seconds into the game. Yeah, I tongue twister moment there. Anyways, the 4-on-4 was actually really entertaining. There were rush chances going both ways on the ice, but it did result in a Canucks goal first at a minute 15 on what was their first shot of the game. So that was also part of why this was different. However, the Sharks quickly got it back from who else but Macklin Celebrini, scoring on the exact same play that Cory mentioned earlier. He danced into the zone, got a shot on goal. Dickinson recovers the rebound down low, leaves it on the boards for Will Smith, and you probably can guess the rest, but I'll say it anyway. Throws a wicked blind backhand pass across the middle of the ice to Macklin for a one-timer. Cory, please chime in with the 2 words I know you want to say.
Pitch missile!
Thank you. And that kicked off a string of 5 straight goals for the Sharks to eventually go up 5-1 in this game. Now, not all of those goals came in the first period, but still, 5 unanswered is 5 unanswered. The second goal went to the hockey god, Adam Gaudette, scoring on a tic-tac-toe passing play. Oh my goodness, the tongue twister. It's just not working for me tonight. Anyways, Macklin Celebrini was on the ice on what was a mixed line, so he was out there with the third line of Gaudette and Eklund. He was able to pinch the puck along the board, set up this play, pass it into Eklund in the middle, who then drops it to his left for Adam Gaudette, fires it top cheddar. I think what's important is all of these, the first 3 goals allowed in this game, which I'm about to get to the third one, all of them came on one-timers. So just really good passing and movement without the puck from the Sharks tonight in the first period tonight in this game against Vancouver. Let me correct myself there. But who scored the third one? Well, it was everybody's favorite dad, Tyler Toffoli, who scored, making it 3 Sharks goals on only 6 shots in the first 5 minutes and 55 seconds of the game and of the first period. How about that angel number right there? 555. But that marked the end of Kevin Lankinen's night in net for Vancouver. Clearly, it was not his guardian angel. Also, fun fact, that is a San Jose Sharks franchise record for the fastest 3 goals scored in a game. So at 5:55. Also, though, recently in the month of January alone, something that's really important and a great sign for the Sharks is their ability to score goals in bunches. Because if we think back to last week in the games against the Capitals and the Panthers, in each of those games, as well as the game against the Rangers and now this one against the Canucks, they scored 3 unanswered goals in what turned out to be 6.5 minutes or less. So at the Capitals, they scored 3 goals in 2:46 of play. Panthers, it was 5:22. Against the Rangers, it was 6:28. And versus the Canucks, it only took 4:04 in between the goals. What's also crazy is against the Rangers, they scored all 3 of those goals within the first 7.5 minutes of the game. So that was already like an NHL, like that was the quickest number seen across the whole NHL to score 3 goals from the start of a game since 2011. So that was already setting the benchmark. And then they follow it up by doing it in only 5 minutes and 55 seconds in their next game to reset not only the most recent time it's happened in the NHL, but set that franchise record. So point is, the Sharks are starting games really well and scoring goals in bunches, which is huge for this team because sometimes with their defense, They need to just be able to score goals. And when they come in bunches, that's a great sign for success being sustainable over time, where they're actually building momentum and a consistency to their game.
And just like you said, it's also the finish. Not only are they scoring these goals, which they've shown they're capable of these past couple years, ever since Macklin came in, or I guess past year or so since Macklin came into the fold, but they're also concluding the games without it being an absolute struggle in the third period. Are they still perfect? No, but they're not letting opponents, regardless of who they are, back into every game. It isn't like, okay, the Sharks have the lead. Can they keep this lead? So it's great to see that not only do they have that ability to get out to a quick start, but then they can maintain a consistent flow as the game carries on.
You're entirely correct there. And I'm trying to remember when I said it in the exact numbers, but the Sharks are still one of the best teams in the NHL when leading after 2 periods. And when leading after 1 period at home, historically as a team, the numbers are actually pretty insane for the Sharks just in franchise history. So that's also what I mentioned earlier. I know this game was on the road at Vancouver, but especially at home in the tank, if this team can get up and score multiple goals early, it's just so difficult to actually reel them back in these days. Catch that pun there. But I that one was on purpose. I apologize. I have to say though, also important here is Tolopilo was much better in net in relief for Vancouver. So unlike that game against the Rangers, where they got a little bit out of sync, out of their game, like I was talking about earlier, they kept up the pressure in this one too. It wasn't just about finishing games, holding a lead, but extending it as well, right? And so in the second period, it was Will Sniper Smith scoring like the slickest goal, short side, top cheddar, put the Sharks up 4-1. I have zero fucking idea how he was able to pick that spot other than just pure God-given talent. Like he dusts off the puck, barely looks up to pick his spot, puts it in a corner that's like a tiny little triangle above the goalie's shoulder. I don't even know how he did it. I still can't believe it even now. But man, you know what that means? In case you weren't counting or paying attention, it was a sleepover game. Despite not playing on the same line, the trio of Celebrini, Smith, and Toffoli each scored in this game. Also, each of the top 3 lines had a goal up to this point in the game, which was really cool. While there are no confirmed reports about whether or not they recreated the iconic sleepover, in my head, I'm telling myself they did.
His head canon's like, yes, more sleepover. Always love it.
Yes, more sleepover bobbleheads. But the only other moments or moments I should say of note from this second period, Canucks had an opening to battle back into this game. Yes, it was 4-1, but the game was not out of reach yet. And the Sharks were forced to kill off 1 minute and 55 seconds of 5-on-3 power play time late in the period. Basically, the full 2 minutes of power play time at 5-on-3. That was, honestly, the only way they did it, I have to give my credit here to Yaroslav Askarov. He was superb during that penalty kill. Best penalty killer by far. Don't get me wrong. Ferraro was great. He blocked a couple. He got multiple clears. Awesome by the Sharks in front of him as well. Not screwing him, but Askarov displayed a couple highlight reel saves, but I was more impressed by the puck and rebound control. His decision-making, where he was able to redirect the pucks to, deciding when to cover the pucks, when to just kick it out to the corner. I thought it was some of his best tape came on that penalty kill for Yaroslav Askarov. And not to be outdone, after killing off that full 5-on-3, which was super impressive, I guess 5-on-3s are automatic for anybody but Vancouver. The Sharks actually had a 5-on-3 chance of their own. It was actually just 17 seconds after that penalty kill that Evander Kane decided to be a fuckstick and go after Tim Liljegren. And don't get me wrong, both guys were chirping and pushing each other a little bit, but Kane got the extra 2 minutes in reasonably so, as he initiated the altercation and had taken Liljegren all the way to the ice before Tim could even get his gloves off. So I don't know if matching fighting majors, that felt a little off the mark here, because I don't know if Liljegren did enough to get a fighting major, honestly. So at least Evander Kane was assessed the extra 2 minutes. The Sharks got on a power play, so I won't complain. And then Tyler Toffoli took a stick to the face just 7 seconds into that power play, and voila, the Sharks have a minute 53 of 5-on-3 of their own, with only a minute 11 left to play in the second period. While the Sharks did not score before intermission, they did still convert on the 5-on-3 power play. See, I said it's only Vancouver who can't. Just 28 seconds into the third period, when John Klingberg picked his top left corner yet again, and took advantage of what was a perfect screen by Alex Wenberg in front of net. I have to say, he's not going to get an assist, but Alex Wenberg deserves an assist on that Klingberg goal that put the Sharks up 5-1. So Cory, I guess as wrapping up, and then I'll get your final thoughts here. The Sharks were just much better at keeping their foot on the gas in this game, learning from their mistakes against the Rangers. To go up 5-1 before in the third, they finally started to chill out and coast a little bit, let Vancouver do the work of driving play some. This did give me a little concern late in the game when Filip Hronek wired an absolute piss missile of his own past Askarov on a power play. Like that one was the fastest shot of the game by far, but we can't be more excited about a Vancouver goal in a losing effort, especially. So he gets a more reduced piss missile. It did give the Knuckleheads a bit of momentum and kept me on edge for the final 10 minutes of the game. But overall, the Sharks just masterclass in this one, doing what they were supposed to do against the league's worst team. And really good for Askarov to get a bounce back game. I know I've hinted at his struggles recently, but 23 saves on 25 shots was a much needed bounce back game for him. And I hope it gives him some more confidence moving forward.
No final thoughts other than Vancouver is completing their tank job.
Yeah, I hope Gavin McKenna wants to go to Vancouver.
Or what is it? I guess Steinbrenn?
Oh, yes. That's a good point. I will do some digging. Here's my commitment to all of you listening. I'm going to do some digging, and during this Olympic break, I'm going to do a deep dive into some of the top prospects expected for the draft. Give us a little preview based on the latest news. I haven't done that yet. So thank you for reminding me, my friend. That is planned for this upcoming time period. But anyway, since we don't have a full in the tank tonight, I'm going to go ahead and give you my 3 Sharks of the week right here. With so many to choose from in these great games and only 2 games of play, got to give some honorable mentions to Colin Graf, Sam Dickinson, and John Klingberg, who each logged a multi-point game this week. But as your number 3 star, I got to give it up for Alex Nedeljkovic, who has made a legitimate case, like I said earlier, to be considered the Sharks' starting goaltender. 5 straight wins. During that win streak he's been on, his personal win streak, he's got a .931 save percentage, a 199 GAA. He's 5-0-0, of course, and has 1 fight won during that time, lest we forget that from last week. That iconic goalie fight still lives on now. At number 2, let's go Will Smith with a goal and 4 assists across these most recent 2 games. And who else? It's obvious at this point. At number 1, it has to be Macklin Celebrini with 3 goals and 3 assists across 2 games. Those goals include totaling career number 51 up to this point. And that combination of Smith and Celebrini have now had 45 points on the same goal, where they both score points on the same goal, either both having assists or one assist the other's goal 45 times, all before the age of 21. That puts them tied for 4th on the all-time list, only now chasing 2 different combinations of Gretzky, one with Curry and one with Coffey, each at 47 and 49 respectively, and then the Kane-Tays duo, that iconic duo from the 2010s, who have 64 points on the same goal before the age of 21. So, for a future fun fact, comment down below if you think Celebrini and Smith this season can get at least 4 more, combine for at least 4 more goals to move up all the way to second on the all-time list, or if you're confident enough to think they can get 20 more to take the overall lead in NHL history.
Well, there you go. I hope they can. Well, I don't have your avalanche of the week just yet, but I do have some quick stats that I've forgotten to include in the past few episodes that I had written down. So let's catch up real quick. The last Gordie Howe hat trick that the Avs had was by Nazem Kadri on March 25th, 2022. Spencer Martin, goaltender for the New York Rangers, who made his season debut against the Bruins when the Rangers got destroyed 10-2, was a third-round pick of the Avalanche in 2013. Finally, Nathan MacKinnon earned his 1100th point and has scored over 400 goals. He is third all-time in goals, but second all-time in assists and points. He also has the second most multi-point games in franchise history. Now then, the more fun part, in my opinion, more trade news!
Hooray!
You thought it was over? You were wrong. And the best part is, I have no notes here because I don't need notes to speak on how reviled I am about Evander Kane. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure Dom can also tell you all about Evander Kane. Evander Kane has been given permission to seek a trade out of Vancouver. And according to Kevin Weeks, the two teams interested are Dallas and Colorado. No. God, no.
Nope.
No one here wants Evander Kane. I'm pretty sure we would boycott and not go to the games if this team traded for Evander Kane. On an analytical standpoint, there are positives and negatives I could give you for an Evander Kane trade and what he could possibly bring to this squad. Will I do it? Painfully, but sure. Do I want to do it? No, because my own personal biases, I literally want this team to have absolutely nothing to do with this player. But fuck, I will give some analysis here in just a second. But Dom, you have a good history with this player. Why should the Avalanche want or not want Evander Kane? Fuck, even Stars fans don't want this guy, according to online discourse. No one wants Evander Kane.
Evander Kane is where he belongs. He belongs in Vancouver in the Shadow Realm where all things go bad and nobody gives a fuck. And they've just all so disheartened that they don't even care anymore as fans. That's not true. They're all just accepting their suffering. But playing in Vancouver doesn't always get the most national media, which is perfect for Evander Kane so that his choices off the ice do not regrace the media. His exit from San Jose was costly. He was playing well at the time, and his bonehead decision-making and inability to be a consistently good human being is always frustrating for me just as a human being myself. But on the ice, I see no value added. I didn't mention it earlier, but this is the one problem with when the Sharks play in Vancouver is that Evander Kane doesn't get booed every time he touches the puck because that's what happens when he's in San Jose. He's ass. He belongs in the Shadow Realm. I think him being on Dallas would be a match made in hell because I hate them both, right? But him being up in Vancouver is perfect, so nobody has to hear from him or about him or anything. Like, nobody wants him. Like, go play in Europe at this point, dude, or Russia. Just get out of the NHL. Like, I'm not always going to do this and call for players to not be in the NHL. I respect the amount of effort and work it takes to be able to make it this far and to play for these teams and how much of an honor it is. But I have that much of a problem with this man that no, there is no statistical numbers you could say to me, Cory, that could ever convince me to ever want Evander Kane on my team. Hell, if he was on the Avalanche, I'd probably bring a piece of painter's tape to put over the nameplate on the back of my jersey that just says, fuck Evander Kane, right? Because that, more than any one player, that message rings true with me.
Yep. And, you know, we try to separate the athlete from the product on the ice, but Evander Kane notably has a lot of off-ice drama, as do many hockey players. But that drama tends to follow him wherever he goes and translates to a bad locker room culture. The Avalanche have a good locker room culture. I would genuinely hate for them to taint that by bringing in this player, no matter what the perceived value may be that he brings. Now, mind you, he could score the playoffs. 2021-22, he had fucking 13 goals and 17 points in just 15 games. He can do it. And that's funny because that's the year that the Avalanche beat them and won. And I do remember him scoring in that series. However, I didn't even know his NHL career was only 6 years long. That's kind of crazy. I didn't realize he was only in San Jose for 2 years. I thought he was there just forever. But again, I think the off-ice issues, the locker room issues, far outweigh any perceived value that he can bring. Can he hit? Yes, maybe. We don't know anymore. Can he score in the regular season? Maybe. We don't know anymore. And maybe that's just a victim of being in Vancouver, where there's nobody to really set him up. But yeah, I just, total bias standpoint here, not even analytical. I don't want this guy. Straight up. There are so many other players that I think the Avalanche could go after for their bottom six. This is not one of them. And not to mention, he has an over $5 million cap hit. There are infinitely better players that, even if it costs you a first-round pick, i.e. Ryan O'Reilly, who are out there that have a better contract and bring more value to this team. Just, yeah, I will kibosh it there. Unless you have one more fuck you in you, Dom. But no to Evander Kane. Thank you very much. Come again. Or don't come again.
The one, make sure this Avalanche team does not win the cup is to bring Evander Kane. He is a cancer.
Yep. Well said, Dom. Let's move on.
I'm serious. If there's one way, yeah, that I thought.
I don't doubt you.
All right, let's move it along.
No, you were about to go, so go ahead and go. What?
All right. It's just the one surefire way. Like, if there's one thing that I swear, if somehow Evander Kane ended up on the Avalanche, I would be putting money on the Avalanche getting bounced in the first round. Like, wow. It is that bad. He is that toxic. He is just a virus that kills all things good about this sport, about team's momentum. All my hate for Vegas pales in comparison to my hate for this one player. So I'm just telling you, he has a great way of destroying a franchise. Do not ever sign him, anybody. Force him out.
Very good. Let's talk about something happier, and that's the Avalanche have extended defenseman Sam Malinski for 4 more years at an average annual value of $4.75 million. Let me tell you right now, that is fantastic value for who this player is going to become. Sam Malinski was an undrafted free agent out of college, but the Avalanche saw something there, and he's basically turned into Cale Makar light. And I mean, he's been playing third line minutes. That's just because the Avalanche have such a deep D-core when fully healthy. But when they're not healthy, he can easily play up on the second and even first pair. He has that talent level in him. And he is one of those players when you say, you need to step it up, you need to reach another level. He did. He has reached the expectations that the Avalanche have set for him wholeheartedly. And it's been awesome to watch. Not only is he contributing offensively, I believe he's up to 25 points already, so half a point per game for a defenseman. Fantastic work. But he is so smart on the defensive side. I love watching Sam Malinski play. I am constantly, if there's any Av player that I'm kind of always paying attention to on the ice, it's him, because it always seems like he's doing the right thing. Yes, he still makes mistakes. Everybody does. But he is somebody that I love to watch. Now, what some people have questioned then, with this extension being signed, which is kind of in the median for Avs defensemen, some are signed for a little more, some are signed for a little less, is some people think that this means that Sam Girard this season is immediately heading out the door. But that really might not be the case. Dom, you had some kind of good thoughts on this that I asked for you to share, if you don't mind, kind of what you were thinking when I first told you this.
Yeah, absolutely. And to start, I don't necessarily think Sam Girard is a lock to stay on this team. I'm not disagreeing with those who think he's going to be moved at some point. But the Avalanche are cap compliant right now. They still have 2.7 million of current cap space, and with bonuses and such that's projected, have 1.1 million of projected space still. So depending on who you are adding, they don't necessarily need to send away a defenseman. And considering the state of their defense and the injuries they've had to deal with like Devontae's, I know he's close to being back, but you don't necessarily have defensive players that are expendable. And Josh Manson's contract, sorry, not Josh Manson, sorry, Sam Girard still. I don't know why I said Josh Manson. I was just looking
I
at
was
the
going to
wrong
say, we
contract.
just extended Josh Manson, so probably not.
Yeah. No, but since he's still under contract for another year, maybe if Sammy G is going somewhere, it's an offseason move at the start of free agency or even all the way before next year's deadline. Because Malinski's deal, yes, he signed it now, but it doesn't kick in till next season. So when you're on this cup run, nobody wants to be traded away from the Avalanche right now. No player would ever want that. Everybody wants to be with this team and ride it out to the end because this is their best chance to win a cup. But for the Avalanche, with those injuries, do you really want to risk sending a guy out, especially as part of a deal to try to improve your offense? You're really weakening yourself on the defensive side. And you don't necessarily need that extra cap space right now. And maybe next year you keep both Sams sticking around and the plan could change for how to approach him, right? Yes, keeping him on the roster would limit your ability to add, but like I said, the Avalanche are cap compliant. You don't technically need someone out the door, at least yet. And I guess as a little pause here, because I think the common thread is who leaves for Ryan O'Reilly to come in, right? Cory, that's a lot of the path we've been following when we've talked about this, you and I. Sammy G is a player that maybe does Nashville really want, right? Because
they'll probably
you're
want
the one
Ross
who told
Colton
me
over
that
Sammy G, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and you're the one who told me it was Nashville who sent Girard to the Avs in the first place.
Yes.
So perhaps something here would involve a third team in the deal. And maybe that third team wants Sammy G, or maybe they want someone else entirely. So I think it's a little too early to say that the extension of Sam Malinski for next year onward means any one player is immediately out the door this year. It has no bearing on this season. Nothing has changed for this season. It is only for next season. And next season is the final year of Samuel Girard's contract. So there was always a risk of him being moved at some point next season anyway, if they weren't going to come to a deal to renew. So I don't think this actually changes much in that grand scheme. And even so, even with both of them signed for next year, the Avalanche still have $8 million in cap space with not that many players that are unrestricted free agents. And one of those unrestricted free agents is going to be Brent Burns, who will either be moving to retirement or will be just as cheap of a contract as he is now if he renews. But even if he does move on, he's still a relatively replaceable player. You're counting on Sam Malinski to step up and move up and not just be stuck in your bottom pairing, or even if he is stabilizing your bottom pairing, that whoever that sixth or seventh defenseman is, it's going to be negligible, right? So knowing that there's potentially that cliff of Burns leaving at the end of the season, if they do win a cup and he hangs it up, I don't think the Avalanche should be so quick to move on from any of their defensemen, honestly.
I do want to say that the vibes that Brent Burns brings are irreplaceable. You cannot replace the Burnsy. Gotta love him for that.
The closest they could do is if they brought in Mario Ferraro. That is like the closest they could do to replace the Burnsy vibes. But you're right. He's one of one. No making up for that.
But yeah, I think the short of it is, just like you said, the Avalanche don't want to be subtracting right now. And while their defensive depth is good, it's good because of Sam Girard. And there shouldn't be as much Sam Girard slander as there is. Yes, he could absolutely be a trade piece at some point. But for being an undersized defenseman, he's crafty, he's clever, he's la tornade, and he contributes offensively. There is a streak of like 5 or 7 games where he was getting a point per game. He's not doing nothing out there. And to insinuate that he is means that you're not watching. Sam Girard is not a worthless player to the Avalanche. He has value. That's why he's still here. If he didn't have value or perceived value to the Avalanche, he wouldn't still be here. They would have moved on from him already. So I will not tolerate any further Girard slander. But thank you, Dom, for that insight. But I do still think that there are moves on the way, obviously. And speaking of moves on the way, or moving in general, big news dropped tonight. And I can't tell you much more than this, other than Artemi Panarin is officially on the move. To where? Fuck, we don't know. And knowing our luck, we're going to wake up tomorrow morning as I post this fucking episode, and it's going to be revealed who he was traded to. And I'm going to look like a dork sitting here saying, we don't know where he's going. But it was revealed that Artemi Panarin was held out by the Rangers tonight for roster-related purposes and will not play another game for them until after the Olympic break, which for those of you who are uninitiated means that player is getting traded. He is on the way out the door. Now, for Artemi Panarin, he wants an extension wherever he goes for a decent chunk of change. For somebody who's 34, I don't know if he's getting that much money, but he clearly wants to go somewhere, and he does have a lot of value. My best guess is he goes to Washington or another Eastern Conference team that has the assets that New York is kind of looking for. I still do not believe that the Avalanche want him unless Artemi Panarin specifically said, I want to go to the Avalanche. I will not go anywhere else, therefore giving all of the control to him and meaning that the Avalanche don't have to give up as much to get him. But again, I don't think he's coming here, but he is now officially on the move. We will see in the coming days if that move happens before the Olympic break. Dom.
Yeah, Artemi Panarin is definitely on the move, and this is a rare case where I actually agree with you that it's more likely he ends up on an Eastern Conference team. Just looking at what teams have cap space and would be looking to make this move based on their competitive level, I could very easily see, based on the amount of cap space the Carolina Hurricanes have, they have the cap space, they have a first-round pick, they have a guy like Stankoven from that deal with Dallas for Mikko that could potentially be on the move again from his underperformance that a retooling team like New York might want to take a chance on. Detroit is another one I've heard as well, based on they have a massive amount of cap space, and then Panarin could be reunited with former teammate Patrick Kane. So those are a couple Eastern Conference options. The one in the West that I don't want to say, but I have seen, is the potential that LA could be able to make it work, but not a lot of Western teams who currently have the cap space or the incentive to make that move right now.
Yeah. And I was watching NHL Network. Mike Rupp, I'd like him to go to Dallas. Fuck you, Mike. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, Dallas can barely afford to keep Jason Robertson as it is, let alone bring in Artemi Panarin.
Right. There's no point, because if they're not going to pay Jason Robertson, right? Why would you bring in Panarin?
Yeah, bring in somebody who's older and arguably on his way down over somebody who's in their prime. Yeah, that makes fucking sense.
And they also don't have a first round pick, which is reported to be almost a non-starter as part of the deal.
So yeah, that's why I think East, there's plenty of prospects and, assets over there, as well as cap space, just like you said. So that's where I think he's going. Best of luck in the sweepstakes to anybody. Again, I want Ryan O'Reilly. Don't care about anybody else. I want Ryan O'Reilly and I want Logan Stanley. Those are the two people that I want. So ooga booga. Last thing I have here, and you absolutely probably maybe have more, is Kiefer Sherwood unfortunately did not managed to make his return against Vancouver, I'm sure he would have put up a goal. Not that the Sharks needed him anyway. Just disappointing, but it does look like he is on the mend here and on the way back over the next couple games. And probably going to be back against the Avs. Fuck.
Yeah. Kiefer Sherwood and Philip Kurashev are both day-to-day. Both are on the road trip right now for the Sharks because they will be on a road trip for the rest of this time until we reach the Olympic break, obviously finishing here in Colorado. So he was really, really pushing to play against Vancouver. I wanted to see him have that chance to get that little revenge game in. But after morning skate, he just wasn't quite ready to go. Considering it's still 6 days until, or 7 days actually, technically, it's on Wednesday. How could I not do math? God, I'm off right now. But 7 days until the Sharks and Avalanche play, so that definitely seems within the realm of possibility. I want to see him play. I told Cory, I went looking through some of his old highlights from last year, from all those hits he racked up, and some of them are a little soft and questionable whether they should have been like tallied as an actual hit. I must admit, there are a couple of those that I looked back and I'm like, this might be part of why he led the league. But some of his hits are also just massive and really clean hits, like the one on, I think it's McCann for Seattle, where he hits him a couple feet away from the boards when McCann's off balance, but he hits him just right, clean enough that he didn't put McCann in a perilous position, but still blew him up real good in the corner. Things like that. I want to see that type of grit in play. If you haven't caught on by now, listening to us, for those of you who've been listening all along, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you know by now that I love checking. That physicality is my favorite part of hockey. So I'm really, really excited at the chance to get to see Sherwood play with my own eyes. And I apologize in advance that first chance I'll get to do that is hopefully upcoming here against the Avalanche.
Anyway, Dom, before we move on to arguably the most fun debate-filled section of our episode, any other trade news you wanted to touch on? Obviously, the Islanders were doing some ads, but admittedly kind of boring.
Yeah, the Islanders have been moving a bit more. Nothing too exciting. I'm just gonna stick with it in our general hockey family here of the Sharks and Avalanche.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Just quick update on Mario Ferraro, because it's still this teeter-totter of whether or not he's going to get traded. And Mike Grier has expressed that he is open to keeping guys through the end of the season for this team to make a playoff push. They've earned that much, even if they aren't already signed with an extension. So there is still a chance that Mario Ferraro stays with the Sharks and finishes out this season regardless of his contract situation. It'll be interesting to see if they have a valuable enough offer to move off of him, because it would severely hurt an already weak decor and really limit the Sharks' chances to make any noise in the playoffs. But there have been negotiations, and it seems the real issue for Ferraro, who's currently 27, is term. So he's looking for a contract around a 4-year term. Honestly, the value he brings, the ability that on a contender, he's probably a second or third pair, but can certainly play up and play a lot of minutes. I mean, I love that Ferraro's a shot blocker, always throwing his body on the line. I want him to get an extension from the Sharks of a similar number to what Sam Malinski got. Give him a small raise, keep him around for the next 4 years to be either a leader and have a chance, because he's been that one player that's loyal to this team through all of the darkest times. So I don't know if it's so much as an update as still waiting to see, but the negotiations are ongoing, and we have that insight as to what the gap seems to be is not so much the money that's been offered as the term.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'll be positive no matter where he ends up, whether it is staying with San Jose or going to a contender like Colorado. Obviously, I don't want you to lose a player that you love, but whenever you do, you always hope that they go somewhere where they have a good chance of winning. So I do hope that at the very least. If you keep him, great. If you don't, I hope we can get him for reasonable over here, and I think he'd be great. So yeah, I would prefer Logan Stanley over Mario Ferraro. No offense.
Yeah, wouldn't it be just like awful if you guys got Ferraro, and then we went and got Stanley, and then
I'd be mad as fuck.
after that, I think we'd both be begging. Yeah, can we both be here like begging? Can we please just do a switcheroo, like a 1-for-1?
All right.
But anyway, that was just the one last little note I wanted to in the trade realm, if you will.
Yeah. Well, all right. We definitely have enough time. The reason you are all here, the title of this episode, who is making the playoffs? We are going to do our absolute best to guess. But first, before we do that, we got to make ourselves look like fools, obviously. Slightly. We were kind of right, definitely wrong. Let's have some fun with it. So first, I think let's talk about where the standings are right now as it stands. As it stands, and then we'll compare them to our preseason predictions, which are definitely 1,000,000% correct here. So first and foremost, let's trade off. I'll go first here. In the Atlantic, you have the Lightning at the very top with 70 points. Right behind them are the Red Wings with 69, followed by the Sabres, Canadiens, Bruins, all with 65, then followed by the Panthers, Maple Leafs, and Sens, who are all a decent way out of it at this point. Dom, what about the Pacific?
Yeah, in the Pacific, you have the Golden Knights leading the way with 63 points, followed by the Oilers at 62 and the Ducks at 59, currently holding your 3 Pacific playoff spots. But after that, it is a close race. The Sharks hold the tiebreaker, sitting in 4th with 57 points, followed by each of the Kings and the Kraken, also at 57 points. And then bringing up the rear, and I will say effectively eliminated at this point, are the Flames at 48 points, and the poor Canucks, man, 39 points. Shout out to the hockey guy. Send him some love, because you know he's going through it.
In the Metro, we have the Hurricanes very clearly leading at 69 nice points. The Penguins, who have resurged back into second at 63. The Islanders holding on with 61. Then the Flyers and the Capitals both at 67, followed by the Devils, Blue Jackets, and the Rangers, who I also think are out of this. Obviously, they are, because they've announced a retool, not a rebuild, it's a retool, and are selling assets. Oh, I did see at the Rangers and Islanders game tonight, there were scouts from 16 different franchises, including the Colorado Avalanche. People want those players, so we'll wait and see what transpires from this. I think some action is going to get heated up here between now and February 4th. But Dom, the Central.
Also, just while you mentioned that, and since it was 16, I'm pretty sure one of those Islanders trades was with the Rangers, and it was the first trade between those two franchises, if I'm recalling correctly, in 16 years. So just kind of crazy that the number 16 came up in both of those ways. It just triggered that memory. Anyway, the Central. I don't know how I managed to draw both the Pacific and Central. I feel like you should have been able to read the Central, but anyway. Leading the way are your Colorado Avalanche with 79 points, followed by the Wild at 70 and the Stars at 69. To quote Cory, nice. The Mammoth are in 4th at 60. Then it's another drop off from there to the Predators at 53, Blackhawks at 51 points, the Jets at 49, and the lowly Blues at 47, which somehow we haven't talked about, Cory, but the Blues are eliminated.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it
cooked. They are going to sell off. Yeah, they're going to sell off. The Jets have sometimes won games. They won like 6 in a row a week ago, but the Blues have nothing to be looking forward to or think reason to believe they'll be good this rest of the way.
Yeah. So I think before we jump into this, let's again kind of say, out of everybody here who's effectively eliminated, like, yes, there is some tight contention in these divisions, as you can see by like 1 through 5 in most of these divisions, pretty much minus the Central. All teams are within a win or 2 from either a wild card spot or a top 3 spot. However, I think, in my fair opinion, I think the Maple Leafs, the Sens, the Flames, the Canucks, the Rangers, the Jets, and the Blues, those 7 teams, I think the Blackhawks as well are, they're effectively done for the season. I think they should start kind of figuring out if they want to sell or if they just kind of want to remain pat at the deadline here. But I think those 7 or 8 teams are pretty much out of it. I personally think, not that they're out of it, but I think some people are like, oh, Panthers are going to be just fine. They're going to be fine. I don't know. I have some doubts. I do. But anyway, those 8, I think, are pretty much done.
Listen, if the Panthers make the playoffs, everybody's fucked. But that is a major if at this point. Like, we know what the Panthers can do. They don't give a fuck if they're the... Yeah. I mean, the Sabres, Canadians, and Bruins all at 65. Raise your hand if you had the Sabres or the Bruins in playoff position. All right, now put them down. You're fucking lying. Everybody had them as 7 and 8 in this division preseason. So that's the biggest surprise there that could get in the Panthers' way. But I'm generally with you. The teams that I've said are eliminated are Vancouver, Calgary, St. Louis, and the Rangers. I haven't gone as far to say for the Jets because I just think in the West it's going to be a little bit easier to get a spot, and they do have a streakiness to them that if Hellebuck just wakes up and they keep going on runs where they win 6 in a row, I can't fully eliminate them, but I will say this. I have this teams in the danger zone where if we checked back in this in a week from now when we're actually at the Olympic break, I do think Chicago, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Toronto, Columbus, and New Jersey could be eliminated at that point because New Jersey, I think this team is going to have a lot of trouble. I mean, I think the Capitals are in trouble too. I said it from the start of the season. I was not believing the Capitals were going to be this team that they were last year. I think they overperformed last year. I think those teams that are in the Metro that are not in the top, let's say 3 spots, I think they're all looking in trouble with how good how much the Atlantic has stepped it up.
Yeah, I do think they're in trouble, especially because I know Jack Hughes was on a goalless drought for a while, even though he's back now. Obviously, they are trying to make cap room for themselves by getting rid of players like Andre Palat. So, I mean, they could seek to be buyers at the deadline, and maybe if they land a big piece like an Artemi Panarin, it can help maybe boost them back up here. And I do think that any of the teams above them could fall, but also could go on a run as well. The Metro is kind of a hard one to shake out here. I think really the only certainty for me out of the Metro is the Hurricanes. So I can't really say what's going to unfold there.
Yeah, 2 certainties of the Metro. The Hurricanes are going to win it, and the Rangers are going to come in last. Those I feel certain about. I mean, and going back to the Atlantic as well, you're right, because I mean, we did this as of the end of games on the 27th or the morning of the 28th, so it doesn't have the Senators win over the Avs factored in here, so they'll now be tied for last place with the Maple Leafs. But even that's what's crazy is that the teams in last in the Central are tied with the teams 4th and 5th on points in the Metro. And earlier this season, the Metro really was overperforming expectations. I was really happy to see it, but now things have seemed to get back to normal, and it's going to be 5 teams coming out of the Atlantic. So teams like the Penguins, Islanders, Flyers, Capitals, Devils, if any of those teams want to go on a run, they're going to have to beat each other up to do it. It's not like multiple of those teams are going to go on a run enough to overtake these Atlantic teams at this point.
Exactly. Well, before I think we go to make our predictions here, let's revisit our preseason predictions. Well, we'll just go left to right again here. For the Atlantic, I was fucking right. I said the Lightning would win the Atlantic Division, and while the Red Wings could sneak in there and do it, man, the Lightning look like the team that played the Avalanche in the final a few years ago. It'd be really cool if we got that Stanley Cup rematch again, but Lightning are in the lead, just like I said they were. I had the Canadians at number 2. They're in there, I think could still reasonably be number 2 or number 3. And then it all falls apart from there. From 3 on down, I had the Maple Leafs at 3, the Senators at 4, the Panthers at 5, which they're floating around there. The Red Wings at 6, the Bruins at 7, and the Sabres at 8. But let me just say, I'm so glad the Sabres aren't sucking ass this year. Go Sabres. Come on, boys. You can do it.
Yeah, I don't trust me if I'm ever picking the Atlantic. Do whatever the opposite of what I say, because I have 0 of these right to my original preseason rankings. I don't even have one that's like off by 1. Every single pick is off by at least 2 positions or more. And I'm with you. I'm happy for the Sabres. I had Detroit, Boston, and Buffalo ranked as 6, 7, and 8 respectively, and they are 2, 3, and 5 right now. So great to see them prove me wrong. Like you, I had the Canadians at 2, and they're actually at 4. But that's the closest any of my picks really get, because I had the Lightning and the Panthers flipped, so I look like an idiot. I had the Maple Leafs making it along with Ottawa as well. So, I guess it's still possible. It's the Atlantic, but just not my division, I guess.
No. Let's go Pacific here. We were both, I think, decently close here. Obviously didn't expect the Sharks, but I had the Knights, the Oilers, and the Ducks at 1, 2, 3. I fucking nailed that shit.
Same. Let's go.
So we were both right on that.
Go us.
The Kings at 4, which they have kind of flip-flopped and they're kind of number 4 right now. The Canucks, obviously, I thought they would be bad. I didn't think they'd be this bad. The Flames, the Sharks, and the Kraken. Kraken have been better than I thought they would be. I don't think they're going to make it still. And obviously the biggest monkey wrench here actually is the Sharks. They clearly ended up being much better than either you or I expected them or anybody expected them to be, but all for the positive.
Yeah, I actually got the Kings at 5 correct, and they are technically at 5. I think the tiebreaker has to do with regulation wins that the Sharks have more of than the Kings, who are just OT merchants, the fucks. Really, other than that, it's as simple as saying pretty much flip the Kraken and the Flames, and I'd have that one correct. And like you, I was way too high on the Canucks. I had them at 4, so that is just not happening. So yeah, basically flip the Sharks, the Canucks, the Kraken, and the Flames, and I almost have all 8 of them right, or I'm at least within 1. But otherwise, I at least can say the division I watch the most, I feel decently okay with how the picks have worked out so far this year.
Yeah, and I'm glad for that. Here's my absolutely fucking busted division, the Metro. You know what? I got the number 1 team for each division, at least up to this point, right so far. So I am proud of that. Oh boy, but I got literally nothing right for the Metro. Literally nothing except for the fact that the Hurricanes would be in first. On down, I had the Devils, Capitals, Rangers, Blue Jackets, Islanders, Penguins, and Flyers. Pretty much take what I just said and flip it, and then we're where we need to be for the Metro. Man, I fucked that one up bad.
Yeah, so did I. The only thing I got right in the Metro was the Canes. Yeah, I fucked it up royally. Like the Penguins at 2, I ranked them at 8. The Islanders at 3, I ranked them at 6. The Flyers at 4, I ranked them at 7. The Capitals, I have to say, I know they're at 5, and I had ranked them at 4. That's one that I'm giving myself credit for, because I was saying, despite what everyone was saying, that this year I thought they were going to miss, and that this was going to be a quiet send-off for Ovi. You can check the receipts. That is one call I'm going to give myself credit for. But then the Devils, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers to finish it out. The Devils and Blue Jackets, I both had making the playoffs. So clearly, once again, in the East, I don't know what I'm talking about. So don't listen to me.
Well, you also said St. Louis would finish 3rd in the Central. So, what do you know?
Oh, don't worry. In the Central, just like the Atlantic, I don't have a single one right because I'm an asshole who picked the Stars to win. So you can just fire your boos in the chat now.
Yeah, everybody boo this man for like the 5th time this podcast episode. But I think honestly in the Central, I'm within one position for a lot of these. The biggest wild card here ended up being the Jets, who obviously had just a historic fall off. I didn't think they'd be as good as they were last year in a President's Trophy winning season. Connor Hellebuck winning the Hart and the Vezina. I didn't think they were going to be bottom of the division type bad. But I did have, obviously, at number 1, the Avs. Number 2, the Stars, which is still a possibility. Number 3, the Jets. Number 4, the Wild. I thought the Wild would still be in it this year, and obviously they very much are. And then number 5, the Mammoth, which I'm pretty close on. Number 6, the Blues. Number 7, the Predators. Number 8, the Blackhawks, which, you know, the little shuffling, and it's not terribly far off of where we're at. I have to kind of fucking try and give myself credit wherever I can. I was pretty good in the Pacific too. I did decent in the West. I did so fucking bad in the East. So, but I mean, again, we had a lot of surprises so far this year, and it's made for some of the most entertaining hockey we've gotten the ability to watch. So yeah. You're pretty good
we got
in this
the
division
Sabres,
also.
we got the Yser plan finally showing up. Oh, no, I'm technically, I'm decent, but I technically have 0 right.
Yeah, you just really need to swap Minnesota and St. Louis and Colorado and Dallas. You almost got it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you picked the Wild, I picked the Blues, and good job. You proved to be right on that one. But the Mammoth have performed about how we both expected. Nashville and Chicago, I had in the current order where Nashville was ahead of Chicago. I just had them at 7 and 8. I did not expect the Blues and the Jets to be this bad. Like you, I had the Jets making the playoffs, although I only had them at the 4 seed. So them being all the way at the bottom is not as bad and compensates for how bad my Blues take was. And also, I think technically we should all agree the Stars are realistically at 2 because they have 1 less point than the Wild, but have played 4 fewer games.
Oh, so really? Okay, yeah.
Realistically, odds are, yeah, the Wild, yeah, they have 4 games in hand on the Wild. So I think the Stars, even though technically they're at 3 in this, they should be counted at 2 for ranking these correctly.
Yeah, I think so. So with that review being said, looking at this right now, again, starting in the Atlantic, there are 3 teams with 65 points. And then, obviously, you have to contend with the Panthers as well. And then, not even that, but so I guess we have to do the East together because we have to do wild card spots and then the West together. So, obviously, in the Atlantic, 3 teams with 65 points. And then, obviously, the Panthers. And then in the Metro, you have your 4 and 5 tied with 57 points. I do hesitantly say I think that both Eastern wildcard spots here are going to be taken by Atlantic Division teams. I think the Flyers and the Capitals are doing themselves no favors by, continuing to lose these games, not to mention the 2 and the 3 seed in the Metro both have less points than the 3 through 5th seed in the Atlantic. So I do think the Atlantic, I think this is a safe bet, do dominate the playoff spots for the East. Would you say that's an unreasonable assumption?
No, it's completely reasonable. I think when you look at how the Flyers, Capitals, and Devils have dropped off and how the Blue Jackets really haven't been able to pick up any steam, they've just been there licking at their heels the whole time, but never been able to gain ground. I would take, honestly, I mean, maybe not the Senators, but I'd say the Maple Leafs have a better chance of making it than any of them and of those 3-4 teams in the Metro. And the Maple Leafs are in 7th in the Atlantic right now. So they'd have to battle through their own division. And I still think they have a better shot than the Flyers, Capitals, or Devils at this point.
And I mean, mind you, a good run can change the fortune of some of these teams. Like, yeah, the Flyers or the Caps, they have to win 2 games to catch up to the Islanders. But I mean, the Islanders won again tonight. So I think that would bring them up to 63 unless this is live updates.
No, this is as of last night. So
okay, so yeah, the Islanders are even further ahead now at this point. So I mean, they're behind by 3 wins. So I mean, a run could change their fortune. The unfortunate part is everybody somehow seems to keep winning. Even though a team always has to lose a game for another team to win, everybody just seems to keep winning. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these games are going to OT this year. So a lot of extra pity points are being handed out. So it's tough for me to say that even with a win streak, it's like, yeah, we got a win streak, but you've made up no ground because the teams ahead of you also keep winning. I think the biggest question for the East here is, you know, I think the Canadians make it. I think the Lightning and the Red Wings are safe. The biggest question is, do you think the Panthers make it? And who do they kick out to do it?
That is a tough question. I do think that the best question of the East is the Hurricanes, Lightning, and Red Wings all make it. Whoever the 2-3 in the Metro are going to get bounced in the second round by the Canes. So it really doesn't matter if the Flyers or Capitals go on a run and force out the Isles or the Pens. So I'm with you there that we focus in on the Atlantic. Honestly, looking at schedule and how the teams are playing, I think the Sabres are a safer bet than the Canadians. I can't believe I'm saying that. This is the Sabres, who are like one of the least safe bets of this century. I think they have a better shot and have been playing more consistently and have better fundamentals based on that defense in front of them to be making getting a playoff spot. I would have them finishing third here. So that leaves the Canadians, Bruins, and Panthers for me. I didn't believe in the Bruins at the start of the season. So if you're asking me which of those two teams, Bruins or Canadians, has to drop out for the Panthers to sneak in, I'm going to say Bruins. But that's easier said than done. The Bruins are no slouch of a team. No matter who's on their roster, no matter who they're playing, they're going to play hard. So I don't know. The Panthers are in this weird spot where they could be potentially causing a stir running from the 8 seed all the way up the table again. But I just don't know if I actually believe that this Panthers team is going to make the playoffs at all. I think the Bruins are most likely to drop out, but I think I would have to say the Panthers projected to miss. If you asked me to just pick, gun to my head today, do they make it or not? I'd say they don't.
So clearly you're inside of my brain and reading my mind, Dom, because you literally took my opinion. I don't, for the sake of content, I'd want to disagree, but that's literally my exact thought. Out of any of these teams, I think the Bruins fall out of it if it came down to that. Otherwise, I agree. I have the hot take. I don't think the Panthers make it. Even with Tkachuk back now, I think the injuries have marred them too greatly up to this point in the season. I don't think they make it personally. I don't. And, I'm more willing to accept that the Bruins maybe managed to hold on and get the wild card spot. But this season has just been so wacky. And I think, unfortunately, for the Panthers, being in the Atlantic is very much a detriment to them. If they were in the Metro, different story. But being in this Atlantic division is not doing them any favors right now because all of these teams want in. All of them. But only a few can make it. Even with a max of 5, that still leaves 3 of them out. So I will be watching that with great interest going forward. Now, unless you have any final thoughts, let's move on to the West.
Yeah, let's keep it moving to the West. Sorry for taking your take there, but how about that?
What can you do?
We're either both super right or super wrong.
Exactly. So everybody come back and visit this when we are inevitably wrong as shit. So obviously, I think that the top 3 spots in the Central locked easy. I think in the Pacific, we could see some flux up and down. I'm glad that the Ducks are back in it. I think it'll be fun if they make it. But now you have 4 through 6. And obviously the Mammoth have also pushed for that wild card spot now. But I could also reasonably see them falling out of it too. They have this weird ability to be very hot and then very cold. They've been on a win streak here, but they always do that. And I could see them then going on a losing streak leaving the door open for teams like the Sharks and the Kings and the Kraken to get back into it. But I mean, man, if I'm banking on any of these teams, my biggest bet, and I mean, genuinely, this is outside of my bias here with this podcast. I think the Sharks have the best shot here.
Well, thank you. Also, I agree. I'm looking ahead to their schedule when they come back from the Olympic break. They have a nice, easy at-home start. They play a bunch of games in a row. They host Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Montreal, and St. Louis. You expect them to win a minimum of 3 of those games. Oh, and then the Islanders. So even if they split, right, end February, start March, they have a tough run on the road against some East teams in the middle of March, but then their schedule gets super easy to finish out the month of March. Go into Nashville, St. Louis, Columbus, and then hosting St. Louis again. And in April, they get to play Winnipeg. They get to play Chicago twice, Nashville twice. They play Toronto. They play Vancouver. They play Anaheim twice. Like April is the Sharks probably have like one of, if not the easiest schedule in April. And they get to play close rivals in Anaheim twice when they're going to be fighting for position. I am becoming increasingly convinced that this Sharks team's not only going to make it to the playoffs, but they will be playing in that 2-3 game in the Pacific. And I do think there is a decent shot that the Pacific is going to send 5 teams, because I agree with you. I think either the Mammoth are going to drop out entirely, or this is like my hottest take of them all.
Oh boy.
With how they are playing recently in the identity crisis, there is a world, and I'm saying it is a snowball's chance, but the Mammoth could be the 3 seed in the Central, and we could see 5 teams from the Pacific make it.
Oh man, I can't see it.
Pick
5 teams
poison.
from the Pacific make it? No, dude, because look at these point totals. Even with the Stars going on a fucking, losing streak here, even with the Avalanche struggling, even the Wild had kind of a rough January. All these teams had kind of a rough holiday season. There's still, 3 wins or more ahead of the first team in the Pacific. I don't see 5 teams from the Pacific making it, even if the Mammoth managed to knock either the Stars or the Wild out of that 3rd place spot, which I disagree that that's going to happen. The team that gets knocked out is still inhabiting one of those wild card spots, which, for your sake, I don't want that to happen, because I do want there to be wild card spots available for those teams in the Pacific. I see 5 teams from the Pacific making it on the chance that the Mammoth fall off of a cliff going towards the end of the season here.
And yours is the more sane take. I agree with you that is
don't call it sane. I'm still insane.
Happen.
I'm a psycho.
Okay, psycho. Well, your psycho take, I think, is the more logical pick then. I agree. I think it will either be 4-4 with the Mammoth making it, or 5-3 in favor of the Pacific with the Mammoth out. But I have had having watched the Stars and the Wild in the past month, both of them have shown me shaky things. And it's not just necessarily the Stars. I'm talking about the Wild with those 4 extra games played, right?
Right.
I get it. They have this massive point advantage. The odds are slim. So this is why it is a hot take, super out there. I sound like a fool even being willing to say it, but the Kings just keep snagging those 1-point OT things. The Kraken are hanging around in a way that I don't think any of us expected, but they're there, and they're right on pace. So I don't know. There's a gut feeling that the way the Wild and Stars have both fallen off a bit, that a collapse could happen. Will it? Probably not. But could it? It feels like a non-zero chance. And that, if we were saying a month ago, we would have said 0 shot, those 3 spots are locked up. And I'm saying if we go from 0 to even like a 2% chance, it's still infinitely more likely than it was a month ago, because it was literally 0 before. Divide by 0, kids. Boom. Taught you some math on this podcast.
with all due respect to the Stars, and I genuinely mean this, they are a too well-ran, well-coached, well-oiled organization, despite the fact that depth issues have been showing. Their ability to win and close out games has been struggling. Their ability to chain together wins has been struggling. And yes, I know the Avs are in the same boat as of recently, but the Stars, I think, endured it a little longer because it was happening before the New Year's and going into this month of January. I just cannot see a collapse of that scale for the Stars. A stumble, like what we have seen here, but a full-on collapse, I just don't see it. With all due respect to them, I don't see it. Wild, maybe they're lacking that center depth. They have a little bit less defensive depth, obviously, now with injuries. And once again, overly relying on Quinn Hughes, who's an amazing, amazing defenseman. Number one, number two on any given night. Most of the time, number two. Fuck with Zach Werenski, sometimes number three. But that's a tough sell. I mean, fuck, crazier things have happened. Obviously, we've seen the Sabres have the best record since I think like Christmas. So it's wild. So, I mean, crazier things that have happened. I think it's fun to put it out there regardless. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to say that something crazy could happen. And I mean, if that's how you feel the trends are taking it, I can't say that you're necessarily wrong because it hasn't happened yet. I can only say it's wrong in the future. There you go. So
you're right. And how about this then? Let me add this, and part of what is driving me to feel this way about the Wild is the rumors about them potentially looking to move Jesper Wallstedt.
I think that's such a big mistake of them to do.
If they trade him, for this hot take, everyone can have the receipts and they can make fun of me and tell me how wrong I was. Let's put that condition on it. I believe the Wild will miss the playoffs this year if they trade Jesper Wallstedt. There. It's explicitly said, and I can be quoted on it. There you go. That is the take that I think. That is the tipping point on that iceberg that would lead this team to collapse. So that's just how I feel. As a last question to you, if looking at the Pacific, considering the fact that the Ducks, Sharks, Kings, and Kraken are separated by only 2 points across the four of them, pick two to make the playoffs.
Sharks and Kings. Oh, between the Ducks, Sharks, and Kings? All three of those pick two?
Ducks, Sharks, okay. Ducks, Sharks, Kings, and Kraken pick two.
Okay. Ducks and Sharks then.
Right. Okay. So we agree there. I think the Sharks will be the 3, the Ducks the 4 at that point. So then realistically, the question becomes, out of the Kings, Kraken, and Mammoth, based on your take that it would be between if the Mammoth fall that far, do you really think the Mammoth are worse than the Kings or the Kraken?
I think they're better than the Kraken, but I think they might be on par with the Kings. Let's put it this way. Because the whole question of this was who makes the playoffs, let's both lay it out for the audience right now, our overall picks here. So, Eastern Conference, I think it's going to be in the Atlantic, 1, 2, 3. I think it is going to be the Lightning, the Red Wings. And you know what? I'll stick with it. I think the Sabres will keep rolling. So I think it'll be those. And in the Metro, I do also think that the 3 teams at the top, the Hurricanes, the Pens, and the Isles, all hold on to their positions as well. I think both wildcard spots for the East are also going to come from the Atlantic. And I think it's going to be the Habs and the Bruins. I know it's lame that I'm not predicting like a comeback here. Like, oh yeah, the Maple Leafs will surge and steal one of those spots. But I feel more comfortable with where this is at right now as separation starts to show. And obviously I already have my hot take with the Panthers. For the West, again, I think the Central also stays where, no, you're right, Dom. You make a good point with the 4 additional games. So I do think, as much as I think it'd be funny if the Wild got home ice advantage, with the fact that they've played 4 more games and are only 1 point ahead, I do think it'll be the Avalanche, the Stars, and the Wild 1, 2, 3. And then for the Pacific, man, the Knights get a lot of pity points. I think, you know what? Nah, let's be spicy with this one. I think the Ducks have a great resurgence here, and they climb back to number 1. The Oilers take number 2, and the Knights drop to number 3 in the division. And then I also think that both wild cards for the West are going to come from the Pacific. I think the Sharks and the Kings, I think the Kings are going to manage to sneak in there as well, if only barely. Get the wild card spots here, and the Mammoth have a fall. So that's my playoff predictions. There you go. What do you got?
All right, looking at the East, your turn to have gone first, and we're the exact same take. Atlantic 1, 2, 3, Lightning, Red Wings, Sabres. I think that holds. Metro, maybe I'll spice it up and say the Islanders get the 2 and host against the Penguins. So 1, 2, 3 goes Hurricanes, Isles, Pens.
I can see that.
But then at 7 and 8 in the wild card, I have the Habs and the Bruins in that order. So we're basically walking lockstep there. I think the separation in the Atlantic has started to show, and you and I have that same take on the Panthers. So that's part of why I feel inspired to take my bolder takes in the West.
For sure. As if the Panthers missing is not a bold take.
Right. Well, it is and it isn't at this point. It's not so bold as it was if you would have said it preseason. But, and you had that bold take where you had them finishing 5th at least preseason. So just want to give credit where it's due there on the Panthers.
Yeah.
But in the Pacific, I do think the Knights and Oilers hold pat. I think the Knights just have that little bit of an edge where they'll finish first. The Oilers second. Call me a homer. I think the Sharks are going to go on a run here and finish third. You know what? I'm just going to double down on my crazy take, but it is going to shift, and I am going to do 4 and 4 from the Pacific and Central to make it work. Also, just so our picks are different and we get a little bit more spice and excitement. So just to recap, in the Pacific, I'm going to go Knights, Oilers, Sharks, 1, 2, 3. In the Central, I'm going to go Avalanche, Stars, Mammoth as the 1, 2, 3. At your number 1 wild card, I'll put the Minnesota Wild, who just hang on. At your number 1 wild card, I'll put the... No, you're right. I'll put the Wild as the number 1 wild card, and I'll put the Ducks as the number 2 wild card. I don't believe in this Kings team. I think this Kraken team is better than the Kings. I've been calling the Kings ass since the season started, though. I don't think this team is for real. I think if the Kings make the playoffs, it doesn't matter who they play, they're getting their asses swept. So I just don't want to see them in the playoffs for multiple reasons. Plus, I think Ducks Avs could be an enticing first-round matchup.
That would definitely be interesting. What I think is ultimately the most entertaining is I think either of our takes could be correct, but the more likely scenario is it's something in the middle or different entirely. I know that's a very fucking easy thing to say there. Well, we could be right, but we're probably not. And it could be something else. But I think you all know what I'm trying to imply when I say that. So there you go, everybody. Our thoughts on who is making the playoffs. Because clearly, based on our preseason predictions, we totally know what's going on. We have no idea.
Yeah, technically no teams have been statistically eliminated yet. So even when we talk about teams being eliminated, even Vancouver could go on a fucking run. Is it going to happen? Fuck no. But could they? Sure. There's a wide range of outcomes here. That one I don't think is realistically one of them, but technically speaking, statistically, like a 0.01% chance, sure, it exists. But anyway, I think to bring in one of our good old favorites, we've perseverated on this topic, and I think we've wrapped it up nicely in a bow, wouldn't you say?
I would agree, which leads us into your top players of the week. Number 3 is William Nylander. Not for any performance he had on the ice, but for flipping off the camera when the Avs were playing Toronto. I thought that shit was fucking hilarious, and the fact that he got fined for it is dumb as hell. The fact that all of these analysts are making a fucking huge deal out of it is lame. Lame. Plenty of players have not only flipped off the camera, but done far more egregious things that have resulted in zero punishment. Really? Was this necessary? Absolutely the fuck not. My God. His apology was honestly even funnier.
Yeah, if there's a space there, I completely agree. Dumb, like seriously, the punishments that for injury related things and player safety have been underwhelming, and then you're going to turn around and punish this with all of the things like Canadian media will say just curse words on air, no big deal. These guys are having mic'd up on the ice, and even if they're not, you can still hear things on the broadcast sometimes from what they're saying to each other on the ice. A finger to the camera from up in the box when you're injured. Come on, man. Like, that's some weak ass pussy shit from the NHL. That's throwing a little temper tantrum.
And some of them were like criticizing him for wearing a tank top in the booth. He's injured. Who gives a fuck if he's wearing a 3-piece suit in the box or not? I don't fucking care. I don't question his professionalism or work ethic because he's wearing a fucking tank top. Get real.
Yeah, this isn't Hollywood. This isn't the red carpet. Oh my God, who are you wearing? Nobody cares if it's not the sweater on the ice, okay? Like, I get it. We're going to do a quick shot pan to the guys who are injured, but honestly, none of us even care if they're there in the stands or not. We want to watch the actual hockey happening on the ice, not who's not playing sitting up in a box somewhere.
Anyway, number 2, Mackenzie Blackwood. Not great against Philadelphia, but his bounce back deserves to be commended. And honestly, I could really throw in his performance against the Ottawa Senators tonight. He was the reason the Avalanche stayed in the game, so well done to him. Glad to see that he is really coming back into his own, even if the results haven't always reflected that. And number 1, Brock Nelson. Duh. He finally got the hat trick. I love Big Cock Brock. He is just so reliable. Can't wait to see how he's going to do in the playoffs this year with how well he's gelled with this team. He was not an overpay. The trade was not bad. Love Big Cock Brock. Dom, I have a cool fun fact for you that I've had on the back burner for forever, and I finally get to bust out and use. Are you ready?
I know you're ready to bust after talking about Big Cock Brock, so I won't stop you.
I'm ready to burst. All right. Hockey used to have another position. There were forwards, defensemen.
What? Really?
Yes. There were forwards, defensemen, goaltenders, and the rover, which means games used to be played 6-on-6 rather than 5-on-5. What the hell is a rover? The term may give you a clue, but the rover didn't have a set role and instead roamed about the ice and went where they were most useful to their team. One comparable is that of a midfielder in soccer or football. However, due to the crowding of the ice and financial burdens of the time, having 7 players aside was quickly phased out in the 1910s and 20s among the various leagues of the time. There were, though, Hall of Fame rovers, the most notable or recognizable being Hobie Baker. The rover, however, has not entirely left the NHL, but has instead evolved. A rover now is what we would title today as an offensive defenseman, a player who doesn't simply stay put at the blue line, but instead creates offensive pressure and can be everywhere on the ice, with notable players being those such as Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, Bobby Orr, Paul Coffey, and of course, Gilbert Gore.
Oh wow, yeah. I don't think I knew about the rover, so this is a fun fact for me as well. I have to ask, since the rover didn't have a set position, do you think those true superstar 200-foot centers, the guys who remotely are spoken of in the same vein as Sidney Crosby, could be considered a rover for their ability to play the full 200 feet and be capable when called upon in defensive situations?
No, and I will only say that because of how the rover was kind of diagrammed, and he was kind of back on the ice between the two defenders. So he was more like in the middle between forwards and defenders. And again, just like a midfielder, it feels like he's more responsible for defense, but can generate offense when necessary. Whereas I feel like a defensive forward, you're still driving forward up the ice, but defending is not necessarily your primary responsibility. Where even with these offensive defensemen, you're still a defenseman, so defending is your primary responsibility. Whereas when the Rover existed, there probably were still defensive forwards, but there weren't really offensive defensemen. There were just blue liners that stood at the blue line and were pylons for all the forwards to skate around. So,
gotcha. Well, thanks for clarifying that. It was just a general wondering. It sounds a bit like on a power play when you have the one defenseman who's obviously out there with an offensive focus, but is technically still responsible for being back on defense. Just a little bit of what we could possibly see of it in the modern NHL as well, other than 5-on-5 play.
Yeah, I'd say
very educational for me.
Yeah, I'd say the quarterback on the power play is actually a really good comparable to the Rovers. So yeah. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, reach out to us on our socials or email, and we'll be happy to try and answer it. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can with everyone you can. I'm Captain Avalanche Cory.
And I'm Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.